Alright, welcome back. It's been a while, but I'm back with a pretty cool bike that I'm going to be fixing up. And yeah, pretty excited to get started. So this was originally my mom's Concorde. I rode it for a few years when I was younger, and we both really liked the bike. But neither of us have really touched it in years, so it's just kind of rotted. I think my plan is to just reuse whatever parts are on here, but in the future I do have a couple plans for how I can maybe build this into something cool. Here you can kind of see how crusty this whole thing is from the chain. Another thing I do plan to do is the rear freewheel, which right now is a 6-speed, and the shifters are currently set up for 7-speed. So I'm going to swap that out to match, but that's the only upgrade I think I'm going to do for now. And here again, you can see pretty nasty derailleur, so hopefully get that cleaned up. I also realized pretty quick that these shifters were pretty gunked up, so I'll take them apart and hopefully be able to save them. I've made a video before about how to fix sticky shifters like these, but this time I think I'm just going to take them apart and throw everything into the ultrasonic and see how they come out. So far, pretty happy with the finish, so I'm just going to reassemble these shifters, add some oil, and hopefully they can be resurrected. They feel super crisp after cleaning them up, so I'm just going to throw these back on the bike and get them roughly fitted before moving on. So even though the derailleur came out nice, I didn't take it apart fully or as much as I could have, so I'm going to do that now and clean up the jockey wheels because they're still a little bit jammed up. A toothbrush and some degreaser works fine for this. Next on the list is running some new brake cables and housing. The brakes themselves are fine. They have pretty good stopping power, so I think I'm going to keep them as is, but just clean them up a bit. But the new cables and housing will be a nice refresh. And now onto this bottom bracket. Originally I wasn't going to touch it because it wasn't seized or anything, but I figured it's probably a good idea to check inside. So I pulled the cranks off just to see what I was dealing with. spinning it without the cranks felt way more crusty, so I think it was a good call to open this up. And yeah, it looks like this could definitely use a good service. I probably could clean up the original bottom bracket and just reinstall it with new grease, but I hate these older style cup and cone bottom brackets, especially because I don't have the right tools. So I'm just going to replace this one for a new sealed cartridge square taper that I actually do have the right tool to sort of remove or service in the future. Now, onto that freewheel I mentioned before. I fought pretty hard removing it, and definitely took me a few tries and almost knocked myself over when it finally did go. It came off all right in the end, and I could pull off that nasty piece of plastic behind, which was pretty satisfying. Just screwing on the new 7-speed that I got from a friend from one of his projects. Thanks, Andrew. Now just running some new shifter cables and housing, just like I did for the brakes, just so everything feels super fresh when it's ridden again. I also ended up just buying a new chain since the old one turned out to be pretty stretched. And the chain isn't that expensive for a 7-speed, so I figured I may as well throw on a new one. Once I got everything tuned, I immediately ran into an issue with the freewheel I installed. It's one of those mega range ones with a super low gear ratio, so the derailleur kept bumping into the teeth. I did have another 7-speed freewheel laying around that I used instead. It just doesn't have as big of a range, but since this bike is a 3x, the rear doesn't need crazy range anyways, and thankfully this one worked and shifted fine. To wrap it up, just adding some finishing touches, a fresh set of grips where I actually reused the original grip blocks, which were anodized green, and I thought was pretty cool. And also just throwing on the original pedals for now. And you can't forget removing those ugly reflectors, and it's usually better to run a light anyway, so I always take these off. And I probably should have done this at the very beginning, but it was too cold to go outside at that point, so I'm just giving the bike a good wash, cleaning the frame, and getting into all the little parts. And then lastly, just using a little bit of polish to restore some of the finish on the paint. I thought since this is a darker colored bike, having a little bit of shine would really help make it pop. And yeah, here's the finished bike. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Like I said before, I've got a few plans to build this thing up properly, but it was just fun to do the restoration. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think. If you have any ideas for future builds, either for this bike or anything else you've seen, just let me know, and I'll see you in the next video. See ya.